Is it safe? Have they all calmed down? Good. I've got my Stark mug, I've got Jono. Let's talk about it, shall we? Spoiler alert, Game of Thrones. Further spoiler alert, I liked it. If you've clicked on this because you think I'm gonna rip Game of Thrones to shreds, I'm very sorry. First of all, let me tell you what my experience of watching the finale was like. So I developed this like ritual back in season 7. Because I'm nocturnal, I watch it when it comes out live at 2 AM. So I'd have like the sky at night, I'd light the candles in the corners of the room, I'd get myself a nice ice cold drink and I'd settle on the couch with a pillow and a blanket and watch whatever misery, shock they want to throw at me this week. On the day of the final episode, I was invited to a few different places where they were like, hey, we'll get together, we'll watch it as a gang, it'll be such like a moment. And I was like, oh, no, because this is my show. I have my ritual, it's very special to me. I want to watch it in my nice little cocoon where I can experience it and get whatever I want to get from it without sort of keeping an eye on everyone else and wondering how they feel. Especially as season 8 went on more and more, I'd watch an episode and be like, oh, I love that. Go to bed, quite happy, wake up and look at Twitter the next day and it's full of people being like, excuse me, I have opinions. So I really didn't want any of that for this last episode. I just wanted to enjoy whatever they wanted to give to me. And I did. For 10 minutes, because then my internet went down. Literally right in the middle of the scene where Jon and Tyrion are having a chat, just cuts out. And I'm like, sorry, what's happening? What's happening? So I turn the router off and on again, and I am literally pacing about my living room. Someone's left Skittles, and like a madman, if the people in the flat block opposite could have a look, they'd just see me walking up and down the room going, I'm trying to calm down. I do alternate nostril breathing. These things happen. We'll just, go back to the beginning of the episode. We'll just rewind. It'll be fine. And I click to the episode thinking I'll just be able to click watch from beginning like most streaming services. Not Now TV. Now TV just throws me right in a scene, the scene in the throne room. And immediately I'm like, except I'm not because it's 2 a.m, so I'm more like, By this point, the alternate nostril breathing is doing nothing other than make me go, that's brave to do on camera. I stay awake until whenever the show goes live on the archive streaming services, which will probably be just after the episode airs, which is about 3:30 to 4 a.m. By happenstance, there was a wrestling show on that night as well. I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch the wrestling. And then I imagined, what if one of the commentators just let slip what happens in the episode? Like in the baseball, when we landed on the moon, it's quite a famous cliff, and it's like, hey guys, we landed on the moon. What if it's like, hey guys, Daenerys was stabbed, and then Drogon packed a sad. So I knew I needed to hide from anything in the world that could possibly, on purpose or accidentally, let slip what happens in the final moments of this incredibly special show. So I went to the only other place that I knew was safe, Central Perk. And I put on 3 episodes of Friends and I waited patiently, and then finally it was time and I watched it and I cried, and instantly I whipped out my laptop, sleep-deprived Dan, made notes for myself on how I felt about the episode. So let's go through it. For me, first things first, the score this season, the score throughout the whole series has been incredible, but this season in particular has just sort of hammered home why Ramin Djawadi is a special talent. Everything from that almost weirdly techno beat at the start of the Battle of Winterfell, right through marking the death of Jaime and Cersei by combining the Light of the Seven with the Reigns of Castamere. And oh my god, in the moment when Dany finally touches the throne, the music cue went through me. And after the episode's finished, knowing that literally that is the only contact she will ever have with the throne, makes that piece of music just so perfect. And actually, everything about Dany's death scene, everything about the first half of the episode was sublime. Emilia Clarke's performance, to give that level of conviction, shouting to loads and loads of people who aren't there, in a room that's not there, in a language that doesn't actually exist, just remarkable. And then followed up by her whole interaction with Jon, wherein I watched it and believed that she believed what she was saying, but also saw a world where I was in Jon's shoes, listening to her, and I just went, yeah, all right, doesn't matter that you just blew up a whole city, I'm gonna follow you because I believe what you're saying to be true. You've convinced me with your big glassy eyes, and I just think if she doesn't get an Emmy, then Dracarys. Some people have been a bit pissy about Drogon burning the chair, but dragons are supposed to be way more intelligent than humans anyway. So Drogon sees what Jon's done and knows that it's not because Jon's evil, it's because the throne has turned Dany evil, so let's melt the fucking thing, and then I'm gonna carry my mother off to Valyria. I thought it was beautiful. I was really, really pleased. Then the second half of the episode was fucking banter, because Thrones has always been like an illumination on how life kind of goes on. George R.R. Martin has always been more interested in what happens after the battle than the battle itself. Like Like, that's why it starts long after Robert's Rebellion. And of course, the battles are incredibly important because there's a war going on. But it's more about the political machinations of, you know, the rooms of power and stuff like that. So for me, going from that like harsh, grey, really dramatic, incredibly serious stuff to it's summertime, let's pick a new king, was so jarring, and yet I feel like that's what it was meant to be. The shot of Tyrion tidying up the chairs for about 12 minutes before the small council meeting was fucking inspired. Because especially coming after like an episode where a dragon burned so many innocent people, it just kind of was like, yeah, all of this shit is so petty and yet necessary. I was about it. What else did I note for myself? Oh yeah, bits that I didn't like. I didn't like Jaime reneging on his redemption. I can understand a narrative justification for it. Jaime was one of my top 3 characters. I called him Baemy because I'm original. I love that he started out as this sort of like pristine, smug asshole and then had it all stripped away and was forced into a little rebirth. So I did understand when people were like, hang on, that doesn't match with the kind of redemption arc that we've been going with for 8 seasons. And yet, he always slipped back into habits, and the one habit he could never shake ever was Cersei. So as much as I wanted his, you know, I'll die in the arms of the woman I love to be Brienne, I do understand why it was Cersei. I'm sort of fine with it. Speaking of Brienne, had no problem with her writing Jaime's story in the book, but I would like for her to have turned a page and seen Sir Brienne of Tarth. And I would have liked her to be referred to as like Lady Commander in that final small council meeting, just to establish this is a new Westeros. And the whole business about Brienne crying not being part of her character, I was like, in that scenario, I'd fucking sob my eyes out as well. And I just felt like, nah, do you know what? For me, that was so true. And we like our characters to be truthful. We like our characters to be honest, because after all, if it's not real, it's not right. And I do feel like it was rushed. I genuinely think all the characters ended up where they needed to be, but we, as the audience, maybe weren't brought along quite for the ride in exactly the same time as when the characters were, if that makes sense. And I think it's fixed by like 2 more episodes in season 8 and maybe 1 more in season 7. I don't have a problem with the like massively quick travel between Winterfell and King's Landing. That doesn't really bother me. It's a television show, we're in the final season, you've got to amp it up a little bit. I think maybe a couple more of the quiet, talky episodes that we all became so accustomed to would have gone a long way to solving so much of the character arc criticism that came out. The other thing is, I kind of had made my peace with the fact that the ending wasn't gonna thoroughly please me. I think because I was a fan of Lost and I saw the reaction to that episode, which I still think was a bit unfair, to be honest with you. I think it ended pretty well. But there was such a backlash that I'm kind of used to shows becoming too big to fail. Also, I have an admittedly low bar. I tend to just like stuff. Most of my friends are filmmakers, so they have that kind of high expectation for stuff. And generally, I don't meet that. Although, sometimes I want to defend the fuck out of everything that I like that I'm told is not good. To the point where I want to do some video essays being like, Spice World is a perfect movie, fight me. And the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, all 3 of them, even the 4th one isn't that bad. The 5th one does not exist. I was ecstatic that Sansa ended up on the throne in the North, and you can bet your ass that when they're chanting Queen in the North, I was there on my sofa very quietly like, Queen in the North, Queen in the North. She's my true favourite. I love Sansa loads. I also loved everything about the costuming and the production design. The fact that she'd spent all of these years sort of doing her hair like women that inspired her, and now that she was becoming the woman to lead the North, her hair was just neutral, it was natural. The intricacy in the design of her costume, that there were leaves from the weirwood trees, everything about the production design on Game of Thrones is so considered. That attention to detail, when you can tell that much love has gone into producing it, makes you as a fan love it even more. And I really enjoyed that Jon was genuinely conflicted even after the fact about whether or not he'd done the right thing. Because this show is all about, so there's a line from Harry Potter that I always like to use when my friends are going through some stuff, which is that the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. And kind of the point of Thrones is that we challenge the notion of hero and villain, like Cersei. Cersei's the big bitch, and yet I felt such sympathy for her so often. The scene in season 1 where she almost pleads with Robert to be like, was there ever a chance for us? Because I loved you at one point. And he goes, no. My heart breaks for her. So I love that it plays with that. And I enjoyed very much that the closest to pure good we've ever got in the show is Jon. So the fact that even after King's Landing, even after all the stuff that Dany had done, he was still questioning whether he did the right thing or not. I love it. I loved Arya killing the Night King. I so didn't understand how it was like, you know, we've spent 7 seasons building her up to be a literal stealth assassin, and then she jumps out of the darkness to kill the big bad, and so many people are like, where was that sign posted at any point? You weren't paying attention. I feel like this is a video where I'm gonna be very active in the comments, so share what you thought down below. Obviously there'll be spoilers in there, but at this point, I love Thrones, I've had such a great ride with it. I really want to be in the prequels. I've noticed that a lot of the time in Hollywood, there's extensive rumours that happen for a really long time before people are cast. So I've heard a rumour that Daniel J. Layton is going to be playing a Targaryen in The Long Night. I don't...